Hello everybody, this is John Hopkins with Baltimore Heritage, and we're back with another of our 5-minute Histories videos. And today I'm in South Baltimore, and we're going to talk about the lane behind me, Ropewalk Lane. Have to start with a quick thanks to a woman, Joan Krieger, for suggesting the idea, and then a gentleman who I don't know, David Saffier, who did a wonderful research paper on this. It's online. So thank you, David, wherever you are. Thank you, Joan. I said I was in South Baltimore. I was tempted to say I'm in Federal Hill, and I think I am in Federal Hill, but Ropewalk Lane goes between South Charles Street and Race Street, and I'm pretty sure Race Street is in the Sharp Leadenhall neighborhood, and I don't know where the boundary is, so I'm going to be safe and say that I'm in South Baltimore. Let's talk about rope walks in general before we talk about our Ropewalk Lane. Rope walks were places where ropes were made, hemp or other fibers were twisted and turned into ropes. Ours in Baltimore joined loads of others in Baltimore in cities like New York and Boston and Philadelphia. The oldest rope walk is in Salem, Massachusetts, and it dates to 1635. So a really old rope walk in a really old colonial town. And the ropes coming out of these rope walks were mostly for ships. Imagine a big clipper ship and all the rigging or the ropes required for the mainsail. The standard unit of rope for the British was 1,000 feet, and a big ship like the HMS Victory would have 31 miles of rope, so an enormous quantity needed there. So how did we make rope in rope walks? Well, rope, the challenge is you have small, thin fibers, and you've got to twist them together to make them strong, and then join them together to make them long. And the way they did it in rope walks was at one end you had what was called the drive mechanism, and that was basically the twisting thing. It was either hand cranked or maybe later steam powered. At the other end, you had the fixing point. That's where the hemp fibers, in our case hemp, would be attached so that as you made the rope, the other end didn't just go hurly-gurly everywhere. And then in the middle, you had this wonderful device called the donkey. And the donkey basically helped keep the fibers in place so the whole thing didn't get tangled up as you were making the rope. And then the rope maker would walk backwards or maybe even run backwards as the twisting began, kind of keeping everything in place. You would think that this would be a slow, sort of methodical process, but in fact, it usually wasn't. The twisting went on in a really rapid fashion, and so the rope maker had to more or less jog backwards all the while manipulating ropes 1,000 feet. Imagine that, 3 football fields running back trying to keep the rope all from getting disheveled. Some rope walks even had bicycles so that some of the workers could get back and forth in a more expeditious manner. This way of making rope is not new. There was a little strand of 3-ply rope discovered in a Neanderthal archaeological site dating to 50,000 years ago. And there was a little twister machine, a handheld gizmo, that was found in another archaeological site dating to 40,000 years ago. All right, so we've got this really old process. Let's turn from the really old to the not so old, but still kind of old, and that's our rope walk. Ropewalk Lane dates to 1750 or thereabouts. There were 2 of them here in South Baltimore. There were 7 at least in East Baltimore, one of which, incidentally, ran up and down Broadway, which is why Broadway is so wide. And ours was built by a gentleman named William Lux. Lux may be known as the sort of father of Baltimore rope making, but his father was maybe even better known. His name was Darby Lux. Darby Lux was a prominent merchant. He had one of the early grand houses downtown, and he owned a wharf on the water. People thought so highly of him that they named a street after him. But this was Baltimore town was then growing, and we didn't want some dusty old Latin-sounding street name, so we named the street in its English translation of his last name. Lux is light, so today's Light Street comes from William's father. William, we know, started 2 rope walks here and then eventually sold them. We know in 1850 this one was up for sale. It was at that point called the Coxall and Browning rope walk, and the sale package included the 2 rope walks that had covered sheds, their entire 1,000 1,000 feet, as well as 38 pounds of Russian yarn, 3 600-pound winches, 26 barrels of tar, and in the Baltimore Sun advertisement, it says 2 colored boys for a term of years and 1 colored girl slave for life. Rope making was incredibly back-breaking labor, and often enslaved people were enlisted to do it. Rope walks sort of started to fade out just after the Civil War. New technology made it possible to make 1,000-foot lengths of rope without having to have 1,000-foot long covered walkways to do it. Today, we do not have any more rope walks, but we've got the vestiges of rope walks, including a broad Broadway in East Baltimore, and this long, thin, skinny little sliver of a street called Ropewalk Lane here in South Baltimore. I am going to end by quoting 2 passages from a poem by Henry Wadsworth Longfellow called, appropriately, The Ropewalk. Longfellow writes, "In that building long and low, with its windows all a row, like the portholes of a hulk, human spiders spin and spin, backward down their threads so thin, dropping each a hempen bulk." And then he writes a whole bunch else because it is Longfellow, but he concludes with this passage. "All these scenes do I behold, these and many left untold, in that building long and low, while the wheel goes round and round with a drowsy, dreaming sound, and the spinners backwards go." Thanks so much, and we'll see you next time.